Hello, everyone, and welcome to the regular council meeting of the Village of Lytton on February 10th. Before we begin, I'd like to remind everyone to please turn off your videos, mute your microphones, and allow council to begin the proceedings. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and broadcasted on the Village of Lytton YouTube channel. If you wish to view this meeting or access a video recording of a past meeting, you can visit the Village YouTube channel and watch it there. Thank you, Your Worship. You may call the meeting to order.
Thank you. I call this regular council meeting of the Village of Lytton to order at 7 p.m. Perfect, right on time. So I want to begin by recognizing that this meeting tonight is being held on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Entlecaton people. All right, we need to adopt the agenda, so I'm looking for a motion. So moved. Councillor McCann and seconder Toss. Councillor Toss, all those in favor? Aye. Carried. And now the adoption of the minutes of the January 27th meeting. Looking for a mover. So move, Toss. Thank you, Councillor Toss, and a seconder. I'll second. Councillor Michelle. Were there any errors or omissions? Looking up, we have Councillor Lightfoot on Zoom tonight. All those in favor? Carried. All right, we move right on tonight. We are happy to have a delegation for the first time in a long time. And tonight will be Karen Cooper with regarding Lytton Health Services. Karen from IHA. You are.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council, and thanks for having me back. I do believe I was there in person the last time we met, and I'm calling in today from the traditional unceded territory of the Secwepemc people in Kamloops. I'm seeing you nod your head, Mayor, so it looks like you can hear me okay in the room. And it's a great privilege to be here to provide an update, and I think a really exciting one. I think it's going to be a big year in Lytton for health services. So I did bring a bit of a presentation with me, and I'll just share it on the screen now. And I'm hoping that it's viewable.
Yes, we can see it just fine. Perfect.
Excellent. So as I said, calling in today from the Secwepemc territory, and really what I want to do is update what probably most people are wondering. So thanks for the endorsement that I received the last time I was with you with regards to our health plan. And really, I know it's been a bit of a longer delay, so I do want to speak to that tonight and to the work that I think will rapidly proceed from here. For some of the folks on the call, this will be a bit of a repeat if you've sat at the newly refreshed local health planning table. So we had our first refresh meeting in December, another really positive meeting in January, and we'll continue with a monthly cadence. What we, have heard over the last year and a bit as we've taken our concept summary out to different audiences is that let's get some action going. Let's get things in motion. Let's, we want to be collaborative. There's a certain point where we have to move things forward. And so the refreshed local health planning table really will be a table that supports us to not only be inclusive and collaborative, but to coordinate the various health planning services that are happening in the Lytton area. So this is my presentation to you and my personal commitment, but also Interior Health's commitment to really looking at forward momentum. I'm just going to make it slightly smaller so we don't lose some of the words on the screen. I'm not finding the sweet spot there. No. So the local health planning table, why establish a health planning table? Why don't we just get at it? Well, there are 3 concurrent health service plans for the Lytton corridor happening presently. The First Nation Primary Care Initiative, the Interior Health Rural and Remote Primary Care Network, as well as the rebuild of the Lytton Health Center from the 2021 fire. And so we want to make sure there's coordination between all 3. But I think the exciting thing is there's opportunity for us to plan something truly remarkable. I saw a term today by the Minister of Health as she was announcing new services in Port Alberni, and she used the term campus of care. And that really is what we want to try and do in Lytton, where we combine the efforts of First Nation primary care with the efforts of Chief Jordan and his Spintlam Lodge Assisted Living Elders Lodge plan, as well as the rebuild of Interior Health health services in Lytton. And so that's the opportunity before us. So by coming together collaboratively and coordinating our plans, we have the ability, I think, to really create something remarkable in Lytton. So as far as the interior health rebuild and where we're at, and this is where we came last time, presented our concept summary, received the letter of endorsement, which did form part of the package that goes to the Ministry of Health, because ultimately whatever interior health puts back in Lytton is done so with approval from the Ministry of Health. So the large arrow pointing down is really where we're at in the process and where I think things will start to build momentum and speed up. And that's with comparing the service plans that I highlighted and really moving forward with getting that flushed out. The difference between a concept summary where you talk about services in general and a service plan is really putting the details in that help drive the amount of space you need. So the number of full-time equivalents staff, what kind of staff you need, what kind of treatment and consultation spaces do you need to support the type of services that you're returning. Then it gets really exciting in phase 3. And in fact, at the next local health planning table, we will have the capital folks from IH to come and describe the phase 3, 4, and 5, which is once you have a service plan and understand the amount of square footage you need, you can move very quickly then into some schematic drawings. We call them functional program designs. And then from there, you move through to hiring your architects and into the construction phases of the project. So we really do want to move quickly in 2026 through the service planning and into that phase 3, much more of the capital process. So just a reminder for folks, it's been a while, so let me refresh what it is we're proposing to put into Lytton, and that's to resume 7-day-a-week extended hour service for access to both primary and urgent care. We're looking at having established transportation solutions, not just with our BC ambulance partners, but also what we heard loud and clear in the engagements is the solution for when folks do have to go out of town for higher care and helping them return. I've mentioned already on the call today the partnership with Chief Jordan around reestablishing the assisted living beds. And we're looking for the potential and have already begun some of this work to expand the diagnostic services that you had prior to include things like ECGs and other lab diagnostic services. And then lastly, we want to continue our partnership around accommodating staff, including our physicians, but also have the ability to build up and to have staff accommodations just as the community itself continues to rebuild. So the service plan and the last meeting at the local health planning table, we really were calling out for volunteers to help us move quickly through that process, the details around hours of service, staffing levels, etc. And so there was a meeting today with the internal service planning folks as well as one tomorrow. There will be another meeting sometime in the next couple of weeks that includes our external partners. So coming back to the local health planning table at the end of February with a first draft of that service plan, we're really trying to move quickly to get to the next phase of the planning. We've done some preliminary mapping with our capital planning folks based on the concept summary, and really what it is to try and achieve that campus of care vision of being co-located with the Spitlam Lodge, the assisted living beds, the maybe the First Nation primary care clinic, but certainly all of those services that you saw in the concept summary proposal back where we were on Main Street. I will highlight some changes. Obviously, folks must be thrilled that private pharmacy services have returned, and our role as the medication dispenser in Lytton has shifted over to that. So that's exciting for us. Halter services. That was the other thing that we've added besides ECG to our diagnostics program in our temporary site. We've also begun to expand our home health and public health, both in the temporary site as well as with outreach. And we're offering consistent biweekly mental health and substance use services. I think the biggest change you're going to see locally between now and when we're into the new build is around the stabilization of the physician coverage. And we were thrilled to get 3 new physicians last fall in Lillooet. We're getting another one this spring. And bringing that Lillooet physician complement up to the level that it is has created capacity for consistently serving Lytton, not relying on locum service as much, although we've been very, very grateful for the level of locum coverage we've had. This will start to have those Lillooet physicians build relationships within Lytton, take turns coming and providing the physician support for the site, as well as potentially some support for the neighboring First Nation communities. As always, we continue our planning in collaboration with our BC Emergency Health Services partners. And I do know that they are also planning their permanent sites in Lytton as well. So I think I've given away most of the content on this slide, and that is just the ability of us to have a Lillooet Lytton primary care service that will be rotational beginning in April, reducing our reliance on locums, and creating more opportunity to have care directly to First Nation communities in the corridor. The other thing I wanted to bring to attention is a few projects that are happening adjacent to Lytton to just really highlight that not only are we wanting to see services rebuild, but also really what improvement opportunities do we have. Some of you may have been following the news in Kamloops around maternity care and the need for us to have an ability to have prenatal care closer to home. So while Kamloops continues to be the delivery hub for the area, we really do want to improve non-delivery rural maternity care. So we have a project that's underway in Merritt. Merritt was chosen just by sheer volume of deliveries each year for us to test a new concept. But that concept has the potential to be part of the services we offer in Lytton from a prenatal and perinatal pathway perspective. The other thing we're doing at the Ashcroft Urgent and Primary Care Center is we're looking to see what a low acuity and tarmac assessment project would look like. So this is work that BC EHS underwent through the Spreading Physician Quality Initiative. With success in several other smaller EDs across rural interior health. And we're looking at Ashcroft as part of their new Spread This initiative. And really what it means is, say you are in Lytton and you've called an emergency, the emergency line for ambulance support. And the ambulance assesses you as potentially not needing to go all the way to either Lillooet or Kamloops for care. Going to the urgent and primary care center for conditions they can manage. All the tarmac means is that the physician actually leaves the clinic to assess you in the back of the ambulance and really helps to determine whether this is something that could be treated locally or whether transportation onward to Kamloops is required. So that's a project that we're just initiating in Ashcroft. But there'll be a lot that we can learn around what we do eventually then in Lytton when our services are reestablished. But what I'll highlight on the next slide is the excitement that we have around our Rural Emergency Department sustainability. You may have heard of it. It's called Link ED. We're actually 2 months into it now, but we've just completed our 1 month evaluation. That's why you're seeing the 1 month dates there. Typically on any given night, this is our project where Lillooet is one of the partner sites, and they have a combination of in-person physician coverage as well as virtual physician coverage. And really the goal was to prevent any further service interruptions. I don't need to remind folks what last year looked like in Lillooet before we had that influx of doctors. And so our hope is this produces very, very reliable, consistent access to the emergency department in Lillooet. So they're partnered with NACUSP and Clearwater and Princeton to rotate each night in-person coverage and virtual coverage. And all 4 communities on any given night have a backup physician in the community should the emergency case that comes in be such that needs in-person care. We wake them up and we have them come in. So the early data is very, very promising. We're moving through what we call our soft launch phase. By March, we'll be in the full model. And to this date, even going through the busy Christmas season, we have had no service interruptions. So grateful to our physicians and nurses for the success of this pilot so far. And that's it. I'll stop sharing and certainly can take any questions.
Thank you very much, Karen. Council, do you have any comments, questions for Karen? Thoughts? Councillor McCann.
Your last slide, Karen, I was trying to picture in my mind what exactly you're talking about. And so I'll say what I thought I saw and you can tell me
Sure.
how far off I am, okay? So it sounded like if I had an emergency and I went to Lillooet, and there would be a doctor there to help me if it was something that needed doctor's care and attention. And there's also the access to a remote doctor in another community at the same time.
Let me do a better job of painting the picture, Councillor, and thank you for your question. We are partnered with Lillooet, Clearwater, Nakusp, and Princeton for overnight coverage. And that partnership means that one of those 4 sites will have an in-person doctor, and that rotates each night. But that doctor covers the other 3 sites.
Virtually.
All 4 of those EDs have a 2-nurse model, so you'll be triaged as if just any regular emergency visit. And that level of acuteness, you'll either be seen by the virtual doctor who's covering that night, or if it's of higher acuity, life and limb, that nurse wakes up the local doctor to come and see you. So it makes it so that most things that come in overnight, and I could show the data, but most things that come overnight are not of the most serious nature. And this enables us to take a pool of 24 physicians from 4 communities. And instead of having them be on call once every 4 nights or 5 nights, it means that they're picking up 1, maybe 2 nights of overnight in a month. So they're getting some work-life balance. They're able to go and work in their clinics the next day. The emergency room is able to stay open because you've got 4 low-volume sites keeping each other together in more of a team coverage model. And so one of the things we do is we want to make sure to maintain overnight service, but keeping 4 doctors awake for 9 visits, and that was about the average number for those 4 sites, is a lot. It's a lot of burden on the workforce. So it's a way of working smarter, not harder, but keeping the risk mitigated by having that backup in the community. I hope that helps.
Yeah, I understand much better now. Thank you.
Okay, you're
I get
welcome.
better.
Good. Are there other questions, Councillor Choss?
Thank you, Mayor O'Connor, and thank you, Karen. I'm wondering about the pharmacy, the private pharmacy. Is there any discussion about locating that within the urgent care center? And I guess the same question regarding BC Ambulance.
Yeah, no, great questions. And I certainly recognize, I'm going to do the answer in reverse if that's okay. The adjacency of having BC Ambulance adjacent to the health center prior was definitely a synergy that we would love to maintain. However, there's other synergies I think that BC Ambulance is looking at. And so I don't want to speak on their behalf. But at this point, it dovetails into your second question. While we're open to the previous site leased space, as you know, to private entities, we're not in a position yet to know if we have enough space to house all the services we intend to put back. And so that's really has to be our first step, is making sure everything we envisioned in that concept summary when we do the detailed service planning will fit on our footprint. I'm confident it will, especially if we don't have BC Ambulance on the corner where they used to be. But until we know that, planning to add into the architectural drawing leased space, we're just not quite there yet.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Karen. Any other questions? Looking at Councillor Lightfoot.
Mhm.
Yeah, go ahead.
There. Thank you. I'm just wondering, under your recent highlights or whatever, I didn't see mention of blood work, but that is still happening, 1 day a week. Is that correct?
Correct.
clinic?
That's right. And so, we want to, and I anticipate will in the rebuild move to more of a 2 day a week collection. We are struggling a little bit with staffing for lab services, and so maintaining at least the 1 day a week. But I agree. I think demand and future state will aim higher than that.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, thoughts? Councillor Michelle, do you have anything? No? Well, thank you very much, Karen. Really appreciate the update. As you said, some exciting things coming ahead. Hopefully we'll see lots of action this year. So Thank
I'm
you.
hopeful as well, Mayor Connor, and thank you so much for having me.
thank you. We will have you back.
Sounds good. In person.
Okay. Yes, thank you.
Bye.
Okay, we will move on to item number 7 on the agenda, which is a public comment, and I'm going to turn it over to Corporate Officer Storoshenko. Sorry.
Here. All right. So
Sorry, Councillor Lightfoot, did you have a question?
No, I was going to say, if I may, I'd like to move that the council receive the Lytton Health Services update for information.
Thank you very much. Seconder, please.
I'll second.
Thank you, Councillor McCann. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. All right. Corporate Officer Storoshenko is just getting organized here. But that's okay. Let's go back.
all right. So the public are now invited to provide comments on items related to tonight's agenda. If you'd like to speak, please use the raise hand function on Zoom. You can find that by clicking on React at the bottom of your screen and then select raise hand. When it's your turn, I'll read your name and ask you to unmute yourself. You'll have 2 minutes to speak, and speakers are asked to please state and spell your name, provide your address, and indicate the agenda item that you're speaking to. So if anyone would like to speak, please use the raise hand function now. Second, I gotta get this back.
Excuse me.
It's not working. Just have a technical difficulty we're working through here. For those of you that are wondering why we're waiting.
That's not it. This should work. Yeah, there we go.
There we go. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Just a moment. All right, so I don't see anyone at the raised hand. I'll call for a second time. If anyone would like to speak, please use the raise hand function now. I don't see anyone online. So, Your Worship, is there anyone here at Parish Hall that wishes to speak?
Yes, we do have someone this evening. Would you like to come over here?
Again, if you could state your name.
My name is Bernie Fandrich, and my address is 1060 George Road in Lytton. And the item I just wanted to comment on was the resurfacing of a closed letter that was at a previous council meeting. And when I was reviewing the minutes of the meeting, I came across the letter. And I thought, this is excellent. I just wanted to commend council for putting that letter together, sending it to the Minister of Forests. And what it involves is the archaeology component of the rebuild of Lytton. And this letter that council they asked the minister not to add additional burdens onto the community for when the rebuild or when they're hoping to rebuild. It's particularly difficult for businesses, and but it's difficult for everyone. So I just wanted to commend on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce we will be following up with a letter to the minister as well, supporting your letter that you have sent him. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So that concludes the public comment portion of the meeting. So back to you, Your Worship.
So we move on to item number 8, which is staff reports and presentations. And the first item is regarding the a water grant reprofile. And I'm going to, there's CIO Marquette. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor O'Connor. Good evening, everyone. This is our long-awaited final list of water projects. You may remember this has come before council a couple of different times for some of the work that has started, but we always had a large portion of this grant that we've been approved for through UBCM, approximately $4 million, just set aside because we were waiting for the water report to be received from a consultant that we had hired to prepare the water report, which was a year later than we were anticipating. So we now have, we've got the final water report. We've had a chance to analyze it. And in combination with that, you know, the team has been working on a number of different repairs in the water system and has gained additional knowledge of the system. So we did speak at prior meetings about a potential blockage in the flow coming down to the village from the 265 reservoir that's just located above the highway. That was seen to be a pretty significant issue, and we were uncertain exactly what was going to be required there. So we've done that investigation, we've done that work, and that blockage has been removed, and it didn't end up being a large capital expenditure. So the good news is that it's been dealt with, and we didn't have to use a significant portion of our grant funding to do it, which we were a little bit concerned about, say 3 or 4 months ago. So included in the package tonight, I have included the last list of projects that council did approve back, I think it was in March of 2025. And also a new list, which includes the allocation of that remaining it was like $3.84 million to some pretty significant projects that are anticipated to make a difference in the fire flows down, particularly in the village. So the list is included there. Our municipal engineer, Daryl Oksani, is also on the call if anybody wanted to ask a question about a particular item on the list. He's probably better to talk about the specifics than I am. But once council is satisfied with the list and gives it approval, we will then submit it to our colleagues at UBCM for their approval under the requirements of the grant funding.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So tonight you're just looking for approval of this list to then move it forward to UBCM.
Yes, and each project would come back to council for approval at the time of procurement. That would be, you know, that would follow the ordinary procedure.
Thank you. So let's put the recommended motion forward.
I will make that motion.
Thank you, Councillor McCann, and seconder. Thank you, Councillor Toss. Now, are there any comments or questions regarding this report and list of projects information? Councillor Toss.
Thank you, Mayor O'Connor. I'm just curious, the district zone meters, CAO Marquette, are those the ones sort of at the edge of town between Lytton First Nation, or are they just at different areas around town to gauge flow?
I believe when that project was initially proposed, it was to meter larger sections around town. We're not recommending we do that anymore. We are still recommending the project for IR 17 and 18. But not to break out the flows within the village. So you'll see on the updated list that item is actually crossed off.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Lightfoot.
I'm just curious, on the attachment A, the recommissioning of well 1 was at $340,000, and on our reprofile it's now at 550. So I'm wondering, is that just inflation, or has it become a bigger project than we initially anticipated?
It's because we've actually started that project, so we have more information about what's going to be required and about the state of the pumps that are in the ground. I think initially we thought we could repair them. We're not going to be able to repair them. We're going to need to replace them.
If I could continue, has volume and quality been checked at this point?
We don't have the final report on that.
Oh.
A contractor has been engaged to do that work.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay.
Thank you. Are there any other questions, comments? Councillor McCann?
On the first one, it says increased flow per WSP report, and there's like $4 million there. And I can't find that on the next one.
And so that's the amount that's been broken out across all the different projects. So on the second list, it would include things like the new water main, Highway 12, Main Street PRV. It would include the Loring Way water main and highway crossing, the Ponderosa neighborhood water main. Those are the specific projects that we were able to identify once we received the water report that all relate to increasing the fire flows, which was initially recommended in a WSP report years ago.
Yeah. So the Gabion wall intake, that's one, right? And then all of these other things. And so it sounds to me, and maybe Daryl can answer it, no, but it sounds to me like what we're doing is identifying, first of all, the physical structure that can be improved that will be a better holding. And then going through the lines and just improving the lines so that just by improving the lines, you're improving the flow. Is that basically what we're doing here? Because when it said new water main, Highway 12, my mind just kind of popped right out of me and I had no idea what does that look like in real life. Are we digging up Main Street to put in a new water?
That's actually from Highway 1 down the hill to Main Street is where that main is.
Ah.
That needs to be repaired. Daryl can speak a little bit more to the condition of what's there.
I didn't know about that.
Correct.
Is that narrow along?
Yes, correct. In addition to what CAO was mentioning, we're talking about a water main that connects the upper 345 zone to the 265 zone, which is the lower zone in the village, to improve fire flows to the lower village. In order to do that, we will be improving the main or increasing the main above the highway all the way to the water treatment plant. And the project for the Gabion wall, that covers the general improvements per the report that we received from Great Pacific Consulting for the water intake improvements.
And all these things, there's different state, like similar to the sewer plan you gave us, there'll be different stages where different parts of this plan will get carried out, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions, comments? No? More excellent work happening with our infrastructure, which is great. I will call the question then. All those in favor? Carried. Perfect. All right, we'll move right on then to the contract award for the West of Main sewer upgrades. CAO Monberquette.
Thank you, Mayor O'Connor. And council received a presentation on this project. I believe it was at the last meeting, just outlining all of the work that's going to be required. And at that time, we were waiting for the proposals to come in. So this is our first contract award underneath our three pre-qualified civil contractors, which we approved in December. So it does mean that it's been a much faster process and a lot less work for everyone involved, the contractors as well as us, because we've already qualified all of these contractors for capability and resources and all those types of things. So this process really focused on price primarily. The price that, they were given a very detailed set of drawings, detailed schedule of quantities, and then we asked them just to price it back to us. The other elements that were considered was their proposed schedule, because we wanted to make sure that they would be available to start the work soon. And as well, just their kind of overall capacity to carry out the job so that it could move along quickly once it is started. So when those three things were taken into account and we scored the proposals that we received from all three of our pre-qualified contractors, Extreme Excavating came out on top with a price of $2,197,000, I think it is. But in addition to that, there's a second part to the motion, and it has to do with when we asked the contractors to bid on this work, we were still working on the water grant projects. And as we were working through that process, it then became apparent that there's some waterworks to happen in the same area. And so what we're recommending at this time, because we had the most aggressive unit rates from Extreme, we're suggesting that we go back to them and negotiate adding the waterworks into the contract to get it all done at once, because it's in the same area. And then we can have them, they'll already be mobilized, they'll already be there, the street will already be torn up, and we can just get all the work done at once. So that's the reason why there's that little add-on. If we had the water projects finished at the time and approved, we would have put that into the initial proposal request.
Thank you. So we have, it is a two-part recommended motion. Let's put that forward.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Michelle, seconded by Councillor Lightfoot. Any questions, comments regarding this from anyone? As Cian Lombriquette said, we did discuss a lot of this at the previous council meeting. So I'll call the question then. All those in favor? Carried. Perfect. Okay, we move on to item number 8.2.1. And it's regarding the 2026 budget direction report.
And unfortunately, this one isn't going to go quite so quickly. So we'll have to just.
we have a PowerPoint to go with it. Okay.
And I do have a PowerPoint to go with this. So if Corporate Officer Storoshenko would bring that up for me, I'd appreciate it. And this is we do this process every year. It's kind of the beginning of the budgeting process. And so we had a discussion at the January Committee of the Whole on property taxes, and we went through a lot of different calculations and whatnot. I'll repeat a little bit of that, but this kind of picks up where we left off that day with a few more actual numbers, particularly with respect to assessments. And then, but there's still some assumptions built in here. So, the purpose of this is so that council can provide direction to staff so that we can move ahead and prepare, a budget with a targeted property tax rate. At this time, there's no final decisions being made or anything like that. Everything will still be coming back in future meetings for approval, but we need to be able to have an idea of, to start somewhere. So you can go to the first slide, Lisa. And so this tonight's hopeful direction from council will then result in us preparing the 2026 budget, and it will roll into the 5-year plan that we'll be preparing for 2026 to 2030. So the first thing we'll start with are just the assessments. When we had our discussion at the Committee of the Whole, I literally received the assessments that day. So some of, a lot of our discussion was on just, sort of estimated numbers kind of without any real background. So we now do have the preliminary assessment roll from BC Assessment. You remember that the final one will come at the end of March. That's once any taxpayers who would like to appeal their assessments have done so, and that whole process works its way through. Last couple of years, we've had no change in our assessment roll from preliminary to final, but that it could happen this year. So I just wanted to review with everybody where we ended up in the preliminary roll. And what I've done this year is I've broken out the new construction, because when people talk about, the value of the properties in Lytton have increased X%, it's not really accurate if we include the new construction in there, because that's 100% increase, when it's been added to the roll new. If you look at the properties that were included in the assessment roll last year compared to this year, for residential, those properties have increased on average a value of 7.69% for residential increases. The utilities have increased 5.69%. The major industry, which is our one taxpayer, the mill south of town, has increased 6.8%. And then I broke out the commercial in the same way because we did have some new assessment added, but the commercial assessment that was there in both of the years increased 10.4%. So that comes into play a little bit later when we look at kind of what an increased tax rate will mean for an individual taxpayer. So you can go to the next slide, Lisa. So when I just taking some overall preliminary budget numbers, we talked at the previous meeting about, and we identified a couple areas that were missing. And so this is based on a operating budget of $950,000 for the Village of Lytton. So we know that every year we get a small communities grant. Last year it was $408,000. So that leaves $542,000 to be raised through property taxes. Most of the other grants, well, actually all of the other grants that we receive or have typically received historically have been program-based grants. So we will have more revenue, but there's going to be additional expenses associated with it. There's not a lot of other opportunities for just general grants that can be used for any operating expenses or anything like that. So if we were to increase our tax rates in order to cover the $542,000, it would mean our residential tax rate would be 3.9027. Last year, it was 2.682. So that's a very significant increase and probably not realistic for most people, that's, to be able to afford those additional taxes. The utilities were locked in at 40.000. That's provincial legislation, and we can't raise that rate above 40. Major industry, that rate would go up to 182.69 compared to 95.0993. So a very significant increase for that one taxpayer. And then the commercial rate would go up to 10.2575 from 6.513, I believe it is, in the current year. So those are very significant increases for everybody. That would generate enough revenue so that we would be able to, sort of cover the operating budget just from property taxes. So as we talked about in the previous session that we had, another option is to take some funding from reserves. And we talked about the fact that one of the items that will be in this year's operating budget is $80,000 for the municipal election. That's going to happen in October. So that's a once every 4-year expense. And we're going to see that kind of hit the budget this year when we haven't had it in the last couple of years. You could go on to the next slide, please. And so what is included in this recommendation was to kind of target a tax rate for the residential at 3.00000. And that's based on kind of moving the tax rate in the direction, that it needs to go in terms of covering all of the operating costs for the village, but not necessarily making as such a large jump in 1 year. What that would mean is that the and all the other rates are raised by the same percentage. So it works out to be a 14% increase in the tax rate. So the major industry rate was increased by 14%, and so was the commercial rate. And then that would result in taxes being generated of $446,000, still about $100,000 short to the budget. And so the remainder would come from the accumulated surplus general reserve to cover that. So just a couple of other points on this that are kind of interesting. I was looking at the numbers and what it would take in terms of if we were going to try to, so each year as assessment gets added, you know, the assessed value goes up and the tax rate goes down to generate the same amount of money. So right now, Lytton is just in this very awkward place where we have all of the costs of running a municipality. There's really nothing we're not doing. But we haven't got the rebuild back in the village. We still have, you know, a number of vacant lots and property owners who aren't participating at the level that they will once their property is built. The additional draw on services of those new homes is not nearly as significant as the added assessment will be. So as that assessment comes on, it will mean additional revenue for the village. In order to keep, if we were to keep the tax rate at 2.682, we would need to have another 38 homes built in order to cover the operating costs of the village. That's with us. And now I made some assumptions about commercial assessment being added. It's hard to sort of know what to expect there. But it's not 5 more homes. You know, it's much more than that. And even at the rate that I'm suggesting we could consider for 2026, it would still take another 30 homes in order to close the gap. So it's still a significant amount of rebuilding that we need to see in order to cover all of the costs of the village. The one final thing I'll say just before we look at the last slide is, you know, I know there's been a lot of questions about, you know, how the new proposed facilities are going to affect the budget. And there will be an impact, and that will start showing up in 2027. In 2026, we will have the Public Works building included in the budget and the costs of operating that. And then in 2027, we will likely have the village office will come on, and then probably in 2028, you know, we'll see the community hub and the fire services center sort of after that. So there are additional costs that will come with those facilities. And, you know, ideally the assessment would be growing at the same time. I think it's probably reasonable to expect that timing might not align perfectly. And then, you know, council will need to make decisions at that time about whether or not to use reserves or tax rates or that type of thing to fund. So can we just go to the last slide, Lisa? So this is just a little comparison for people. So if you take 2 different properties, one with a $250,000 assessment and one with a $700,000 assessment, and this is based on the fact that sort of the older properties kind of average around the 250, and the newer properties that are getting built are averaging around 700 on the tax roll. I just eyeballed the tax roll. I didn't do a bunch of math to figure it out. I just eyeballed it. So based on the 2025 tax rate, residential tax rate of 2.6296, the $250,000 home was paying $657 in property tax. At the rate that is recommended of 3, they'll pay $750,000. And if you also look at the rate that's being recommended, plus potentially a 7.69% increase in their assessed value, because their property is no longer 250, it's 250 plus 7.69%, they'll be paying 807. So I just wanted to demonstrate to you how that they compound on top of each other, the increase in the tax rate and the increase in the assessed value. And then you can see the numbers on the $700,000 property as well. 1840 they would have paid in 2025. In 2026 at the recommended rate, it would be 2,100. But then if they also had a 7.69% increase in their property value, it would be 2,261. And this is just the municipal portion of taxes as well. Remember, we have to as well levy for police, hospital.
Do you have an estimate of what those are, Diane?
I don't, but I do, I would, if I was going to estimate, I would say they're probably going to be the same as they've been in previous years or very close, which has historically been very close to our rate. So the taxes would be double this number,
Yes.
basically. Like that's probably a reasonable way to just, think about it at this point.
Yeah, because mine was about 3,600 last year, so.
Yeah.
Double.
1840 times
what the
2.
municipal is, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You can stop sharing that, Lisa, if you'd like. So I recognize that it's it's not really good news, and it's it's a large increase. I will say, when I looked at the communities in the surrounding area, that residential tax rate is still below what is charged in communities like at Cache Creek and Ashcroft and Merritt and Lillooet. I looked at those 4 communities, and our tax rates will still be below those communities. But recognizing that it's still a big jump.
Okay.
So I don't really have any other comments, but I could answer any questions that anybody has about any of that.
Yes, thank you. Do we have any questions or comments from council? Councillor McCann?
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
So right now, this recommended motion is to include the tax rate of 14%, right? And that's what you just described, that's what the 14% is. And
Yes.
so this isn't a hard and fast decision on the 14%, though. This is getting you to use that number as an estimate to do the rest of the budget? Or are we deciding tonight that it's 14%?
No, that's correct, Councillor McCann. We still have a lot of work to do on our individual budgets, and I'm looking at each line item and seeing, where we can be creative, where we can save. As you all know, we do still have some contributions from municipal affairs in recovery funding. This doesn't include any of those costs. That's all separate from this. This is just the stuff that needs to be included, but we've just started to do the work on the individual line items. So it doesn't mean that we're going to hit that number. It's just that right now, that's our best guess, with more work to be done.
Thanks. Thank you. Councillor Toss.
Thank you, Mayor O'Connor. I have to be honest, this whole discussion makes my heart pound quite and my palms sweat, because I'm so nervous about the future of our humble municipality. I'm, like I say, very concerned if we're having these kind of challenges covering our costs at this juncture, what it's going to be like with 4 large buildings in 2028. I looked at the interior health process for building the hospital and talking about what was needed and the operations and the user groups before it went to the architect. And I feel like we're kind of in a wag the dog situation with our public works buildings. And I have an article here in front of me from Salmon Arm that's they've decided to not rebuild their recreational facility as the economic uncertainty that many are experiencing requires local governments to spend prudently and focus on core infrastructure needs. I'll accept this report, but I'm considering tabling a notice of motion to put our hub project on hold until such time as we have either partnerships or an operation budget that makes some kind of sense. And I would also like to see our fire hall and our village office prioritized over the hub when it comes to budgeting. This is about the budget for these buildings. We're talking about 2028 in this discussion, and that involves these operational costs, which I don't think have been properly addressed by this council. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Lightfoot.
I think, yeah, I am. This budget is just for the operating budget in the next year. It's not talking about any of the hub or the fire hall or whatever. Those will
That's the
come in line.
problem.
No, it's not a problem
Oh, please
because
don't call out.
these are the basics that we need to take care of to have the village continue through the next year. The water, the sewer, the roads, the governance, the fire, all of the services that we're providing are entailed in this budget. The extras, those are topics for another time, another day, and will be evaluated when those plans are more firm. So I think, as tough as 14% is, it's sort of the way of the world these days. Last time I went grocery shopping, I had shock, and I think it's a good compromise between getting all of the money in. Maybe we can find efficiencies when we get our noses down there and get super frugal or cheap or whatever we want to be to cut costs. And maybe we can make up some money on some of the costs that are estimated. But I think at this point, 14% for properties, although not ideal, is reasonable.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions?
Just to follow up, you spoke about this being, thank you. You spoke about this being a problem for the future. I think this is very much something we should be talking about today. CAO Member Kett, you said we'd look at the rate after our facilities are built, and then, reconsider what that would look like. And I would assume it would go up drastically to cover these costs. And we're already struggling with what we're dealing with here. I think this is a bigger problem than just 2026. Thank you.
I would disagree that we're struggling with this. I remember a presentation we had where a facilitator said that if we can't afford to live in Lytton, we can't afford to live anywhere. And I appreciate you providing the information about the other communities around the area, that although it's a jump for us, it's still not nearly as high as many of those other communities. Councillor Lightfoot, did you have your hand up?
I did. I just wanted to make the comment that through my experience in the past with budgets, you never get everything you want. You make sure you can pay for what you need. And if you're good planner and frugal, perhaps you can bring on some of those items you've got in the parking lot that will make the community better. But I believe this budget is just for the things that we have to keep this community healthy and safe. And the extras, that's where fundraising and grants and volunteers all come in. So thank you for putting this together. It'll be interesting to see how we proceed as it gets more refined. Yeah.
Are there any other comments or questions? We have a motion to put forward. It is two parts.
I will make the motion.
Councillor McCann and a seconder. Oh, sorry. Thank you, Councillor Michelle. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And that is carried. All right. We move on now to item 8.3.1, Director of Development, and our monthly services activities report. Carolyn, I believe, is online. There she is.
Oops, I'm a little floating there. Good evening. It's always good to follow items like that. This is a fairly short activity report, and not a lot has changed, although we are busy, and we're hearing about a lot of people gearing up for the spring. So you'll see that in the building inquiries and permits, obviously inspections are sort of, there weren't a lot of applications towards the end of last year, so we're a little low on inspections. Planning inquiries, really just one. But again, we're working on property reports for people interested, either selling or doing something on their property. Continuing to work on the development application of Chief Spitland Park. It's really taking a life on its own, the whole road closure and subdivision and MOTT's ownership and where it comes to our Fraser Street. And then obviously the official community plan, people have been quite engaged in the workbooks. We're really happy, and our new planning assistant has compiled almost all the results. So we will get those out to the community very soon. And that sort of sets up for the series of community conversations that people will hear about later this week. There's small topic groups where it allows people to learn a little bit more and ask questions, and then help us sort of brainstorm or provide policy directions and actions on some of those areas, such as economic development, housing, which is quite topical given what the CAO or CFO just talked about. How do we maximize our development potential and therefore tax return or tax receipts? I have done the analysis of the mobile trucks, and we just have to huddle, and I've been in touch with the 4 possible inquiries that we had. And then the essential housing, we had so many applications and very varied, from stick built to traditional modular to sort of the new well-designed modular. And we think we're close to a long list, and hopefully by early next week we'll be in discussions with some of the finalists. And so that's all pretty exciting. And then as far as the actual report, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. So they have, let's put the motion forward to accept this report for information.
So moved.
Councillor McCann, seconded by Councillor
I'll second.
Michelle. Thank you. Now, are there any questions or comments for Carolyn?
Sure.
Councillor Toss.
Thank you, Carolyn. I have a question around economic development. Is there any other economic development activity around getting the businesses back that we lost? Are you working with like the old Rest Inn or any of the businesses on Main Street, or potentially some of the homes that there's 2 homes that are not occupied in the village? Has anyone contacted the owners of that? I'm wondering what other efforts were being made in the village for economic development, if any.
Oh, I'm doing lots of efforts, and the OCP is probably the biggest effort, where we're pulling together people with an interest.
Sorry, economic development, not official community plan.
But the OCP is economic development. And I think if we've talked about that before, is that until the community knows where they want to go. So we have sat down with some groups particularly interested in the mill site. And I also meet very frequently with development applicants, such as a future hotel, a mixed-use development, BC Wildfire Service out at the airport. So there is the grocery store. We've been back and forth with their architects on what's required. Is that getting to what you were concerned about?
I just want to point out that in the O'Leary report, which was our first economic development report, they suggested not to waste time on the OCP. So it's not necessarily an economic development initiative. It does support economic development in some respects, but
I think we discussed the O'Leary report, and I gave you an update. And I think a lot of you, if you review that document and the update we provided, you'll see that a lot of the things in the O'Leary report are regional. And we did, CAO Mambercat and I met with the chamber the other day, had a very good discussion on, what they're working on, what we're working on. And as soon as I have a spare moment, I will be sending them a little update, which is top of my list right now. But yeah, I would respectfully disagree. I believe economic development and the OCP go very well together, because if there isn't a kind or a generous environment in which to do economic development through an OCP guiding document, then people are afraid to come.
I'll respectfully disagree with you on that. Thank you.
All right. Are there any other comments or questions for Carolyn? All those in favor of accepting the report? Mm-hmm. And carried. Thank you very much, Carolyn.
Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Appreciate it. All right. Next on the agenda is correspondence, item number 9. And we did have correspondence from the Two Rivers Community Services Society regarding a donation that went to the fire department. And we'd like to receive that correspondence for information.
So
Toss, seconded by Lightfoot. All those in favor? Carried. Great. Verbal reports. This is probably, no, I am missing one, aren't I? Nope, I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, this is probably one of the first times I really don't have anything to formally report on. I don't know where the last 2 weeks have gone. I've been very busy, but I really have nothing formally to report on. So I'll just move it right on to Councillor Toss.
Wow. I'll just confirm with our chamber president that the AGM is on the 19th of February. So that is my only thing to report, is that here at the Parish Hall is that as the chamber liaison, I'd like to promote that the community attend the AGM for the chamber, and other than that, nothing to report. Thank you.
Councillor McCann.
Oh, well, fill in the hole. It won't be long, but I just have to say. There were a number of events and activities that I was involved in the last couple of weeks. On the 28th of January, I attended community collaboration at Scuppa Hall, and that looks like it's becoming an effort by local service providers to coordinate, collaborate, and work together to provide services that are not duplicated and that are more efficient in the community and the extended community. So I was there with a couple of hats on, and our Melissa Giroux was also in attendance as our media person. And work will continue. There'll be we're going to plan an event to kind of flush out that whole model and how that might look. So there'll be more information about that coming. I also, on the 28th, attended the official community plan workbook session. Did you? On the 30th, was at a Spintland Park task force meeting. On February the 2nd and 9th, were coffee with the mayor. On 2nd of February, the mayor and I had an informal chat with Superintendent Bessie. Do you know how to say her name? Mochikas? She's got an interesting name. February 3rd, committee of the whole meeting. And my comments are that I appreciate all who have taken the time to respond to the official community plan sessions, the workbook sessions in public and on their own. We need everyone to share their views about the future of our community. I have a lot of, any feedback that I've gotten from people is that they don't think they should have a say. It's really interesting to me that people think it's only for the village people. You only need to hear from the village people. And I've had to repeat several times to many different people that, no, this is everyone. This is information we need from everyone. I'd also like to acknowledge the ongoing work that our staff has done on this important stage of community growth. It was nice to see some new people join the regulars at Monday Coffee this week. I was like, oh, good turnout. And I look forward to the potluck lunch on Family Day and encourage others to attend. And it was also encouraging to see work starting on the Spintland Lodge site this week. So that's my comments for the record. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Michelle. Nothing to report. And Councillor Lightfoot.
Nothing to report. Thank you.
Okay, so we will move on then to item number 12. And before we move into closed meeting, there's one item that is to be released. Item 20-028C, moved by Councillor McCann and seconded by Councillor Toss, a resolution that items 7.2, letter to the Ministry of Forests on January 27th, 2026. Closed agenda be released from the closed session. That is in our council package. All right, we are going to move into closed session now, so we need a motion to do so, to discuss items 91C and 91K. Councillor Toss, thank you, Councillor Toss, seconder, Councillor Lightfoot. All those in favor?
Aye.
And carried. So thank you, everyone, for attending tonight's meeting, and I'll turn it back over to Corporate Officer Storchenko to close the meeting.
Thank you, Mayor O'Connor. So that concludes the public portion of the regular council meeting for February 10th. We ask that members of the public and staff exit the meeting as council proceeds to close. Thank you for joining us this evening, and council, I now invite you to take a short recess while we prepare the meeting for closed.